why your retirement plan might backfire. Let's check it out.
Percent of Americans surveyed are more worried about running out of money in retirement than they are about dying. And 1 in 4 Americans surveyed believe they won't ever be able to retire. The average life expectancy in OECD countries is about 80 years old. That's around a 13-year increase since 1960. As a result, retirement ages are rising in more than half of OECD countries.
I think the key thing that drives that is an improvement in longevity and honestly in health.
We have more options for extended work lives today than we've ever had before, and Americans are taking advantage of them.
But wanting to work longer and being able to are not the same.
Over half of people who retire sooner than they ever plan to.
The data in the U.S. shows that pretty much everybody relies on Social Security benefits, which is why it's so critical to restore the system to solvency.
I am going to get my bill so close to zero that I won't even have to worry about Social Security. That's my plan. And then I'll have dividends or whatever. But dude, spending a bunch of money is so overrated now. Like, I truly see that from my own experience. And it's so crazy, I won't get into it, but it's almost like no matter what you do, they always push things back. It's like, if it takes a year, they make it take 4 years. And I never know why.
Here's why younger Americans may end up working longer than their parents, and whether planning to work longer will actually help people in retirement. Roughly 8 in 10 Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z workers believe it will be harder for their generation to achieve financial security than it was for their parents.
Gen Z Americans are often very pessimistic about retirement. They look at Social Security, they see it's underfunded. They realize they have to save a lot of money on their own. And so some of them are on the verge of giving up. At the same time, the data show a much more positive story that at this stage in their lives, Gen Z has actually saved more for retirement than the generations who came before them.
That's because I'm not Gen Z, but they have to, right? And I'm gonna be honest with you, that can be easily thwarted, right? It's unfortunate, but when you live in a society where paper is just printed, no matter if you're a better saver or not, you think they don't have this data, they'll just print a certain amount of money to offset your savings. And then what? And then what are we gonna do? Or what are they gonna do? And of course, 8 out of 10 people are basically pessimistic on the outlook of retirement. It's completely rigged. You'll probably know one guy that retires, but that'll be pretty much it. Everybody else will be working for the most part. And even that one guy, even he miraculously made it out, but even he is on some sort of tightrope.
Workers today often have more in retirement accounts by age 30 than boomers did.
Gen Z have been faced with having to do it themselves, and they have savings in something called a 401k that older people didn't have because he didn't need it. But it doesn't mean that Gen Z is better off.
The 3 main reasons younger Americans will likely have to work longer than baby boomers are: 1, people are living longer and healthier lives. 2, Social Security benefits won't cover the full cost of living in retirement. And 3, many Americans don't save enough throughout their lifetimes. If they do save, unexpected expenses can wipe out what they have. For decades, retirement relied on a multi-pillared system economists call the 3-legged stool: Social Security, pensions, and personal savings. But for most Americans, employer-funded pensions are gone. In 1989, 63% of full-time workers at companies with more than 100 employees had a pension. Today, only about 15% of private industry workers do.
Social Security was supposed to provide the foundation, private pensions on top of that, and then additional individual saving above that.
At the beginning of their careers, baby boomers relied on a system built around Social Security and employer-sponsored pensions, not personal investing. For most of the 1970s, when baby boomers were entering the workforce...
I just wanted to say this. I feel like there's a little bit, well, not a little bit, but there's like a disconnect between baby boomers, Gen X. It's all because every generation thinks the next generation has it easier. And then every current generation thinks the previous generation had it easier. So it's like, it's another way they pin us against each other. I feel like it's the wrong question to be asking, but I feel like this is all just part of their scheme to get us fighting amongst each other, which I still don't understand. Like, I'm trying to put all this together and, piece everything. It's like, there still are questions I have that doesn't make any sense. It's like, I don't know, man. I'm just rambling at this point. But I just think it's like, all this is so planned. It just seems, I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna keep saying it. Aliens, man. I don't know, man. I feel like something's going on here.
401ks didn't exist yet, and even in the early 80s, they weren't widely available to workers.
They started being marketed to employers for their high-income people right around 1981. And then the employer said, whoa, I can actually get rid of my real pension plan and just kind of slowly move my workforce to a voluntary 401k plan. And it's great for me because I get credit for offering a retirement plan, but I don't have to put a cent in it.
The other issue is a lot of boomer retirement savings is nested in the equity of their homes, which younger people today may not be able to replicate.
And I know Gen Z is not better off because we know that home equity is probably not going to accrue like it did in the last 10 years. It's just not possible.
Baby boomers do enter retirement wealthier than previous generations, but that picture is uneven. Roughly half of boomers did not buy a home in their 20s and 30s. The poorest boomers are worse off than their predecessors, and racial and educational gaps remain wide. That wealth disparity repeats itself throughout generations. While the average millennial has less wealth at the age of 35 than previous generations, the top 10% of millennials have 20% more wealth than the top baby boomers at the same age.
Do I feel like I have more money? I don't know. I have a lot of, I do have a lot of bills, but I would say for most people, my bills are still probably really cheap. But do I feel like I'm richer? I would say it depends. I would say yes and no, but at the same time, I can't even make that comparison because it's not really the same scenario, If everything were aligned, I could compare, but comparing my situation to my mother's situation or my grandmother's situation, it'd be kind of impossible. But I say I'm doing pretty well.
The other complication for Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z workers is student loan debt. Younger cohorts are way more likely to carry student loans. 39% of Gen Z, 36% of...
Don't have student loans, I'm not gonna lie. I think that also really propelled me a lot further. College was just never for me as a person. Didn't like school. Didn't feel like any of it was necessary for me. So I just didn't go. Took a couple classes, here and there. I honestly, there was a point where I thought about it and I wanted to do something because I didn't have a purpose. I wanted to do something. But then it's like I couldn't get financial aid, and now I feel like, not that I'm a conspiracy guy, but I feel like everything I believe in fate in a weird way. And I feel like it didn't want me to go to college, so I never did. So that also helps me too. I'm also, I don't know. this could be either I'm crazy or I'm completely right. I'm really good with numbers. So I think I just realized that, like, a lot of the things in life are a scam, and if you do the math, it doesn't really make sense. Although we all fall prey to this. I mean, technically, if I had everything squared away, I would have, I'd be retired by now, right? But I feel like student loan debt is very, very predatory. And there's no way to wiggle yourself out of this. Now, I had some personal debt, which I'm getting taken care of, and really I was paying it off, but I found a way to maybe pay it off a little bit cheaper. But you can't do stuff like that with student loans. They're gonna follow you around forever.
Millennials and 24% of Gen X have them, compared with about 7% of boomers.
All the stories that you get about Easy Street is really not a generational story, it's a class story. So the system has worked well for people with high incomes, steady jobs, and basically steady lives. They didn't have a divorce here or there, or a tragedy with their children, or their own medical problems.
The shift from traditional defined benefit pensions to defined contribution retirement accounts like 401ks, they don't penalize delayed retirement the way traditional pensions do. With a 401k, the longer you work, the higher your benefit. With a traditional pension, there's often a point where you top out.
But a majority of U.S. retirees rely heavily on Social Security. 58% say it's one of their major income sources, but only 35% of non-retirees expect to depend on it. That expectation gap has persisted every year since 2002.
This honestly is actually, it's a huge reason why I buy cryptocurrency. I'm not gonna sit here and get into the whole spiel of it all, but I feel like these cryptocurrencies will be the new dividends of the future. And that's why I'm saying my goal is to retire off my dividends. I'm pretty close. Unfortunately, the market has been taking a lot of downturns, and I feel like they also know this too, conspiracy theory. They know all of this is going to happen, so they're trying their hardest to get people out of the market so that they won't be able to retire, right? So the only way for people not to be able to retire and to keep them working, right, cryptocurrencies have to be hyper expensive, right? Well, they can only be hyper expensive is if you dump the price so low that they can buy all of it, so that it can shoot up super high, and then they can keep it there, and then it'll be, oh, cryptocurrency is super cool, people will buy it, and then it'll kind of go up like the stock market, a little bit like better, obviously, but the whole point will be they'll have to start at these super high levels, and that can be more controlled rather than buying it now and then making that increase. But basically, I feel like dividends will be the future of basically not working, and they're gonna dump all of it before they buy all of it, and so that people never stop working.
The public pension systems are suffering rising fiscal stress. And the U.S. is a good example where our Social Security system is facing insolvency within 7 years. So working a little bit longer reduces the period of time you need to support yourself in old age, and obviously contributes to a bigger nest egg to live on in retirement.
Social Security is financed on what's called a pay-as-you-go basis, which means that the taxes paid in by today's workers immediately go out the door to pay benefits for today's retirees. That means that Social Security is very subject to demographic changes, to the number of workers per retiree. If you go back to the 1960s, we had 5 or 6 workers paying in for every retiree collecting benefits from the system. Today we have about 3. Going forward, we'll only have around 2 workers per beneficiary. That means the cost burden on each worker goes up.
But the work longer solution could run into real-world limitations.
We saw unprecedented numbers of older people, and I mean like in their 50s, being pushed out of their job. So you can't work longer because of age discrimination and because the labor market may not want the skills that you've acquired over 40 years because the labor market and the skills required have moved forward, is the main myths behind this idea. Well, we don't have to solve Social Security, we don't have to solve pensions because people just work longer.
In a perfect world, what I would like to see is a reform of Social Security that remains solvent so that people working today can predict with confidence that when they get to be 65 or 75 or 85, that the system would be there for them, because that's
I find it amazing they even still put out, I mean, I know they're a channel and they have to, you know, make videos and stuff, which, hey, I agree, but it's interesting that we're still buying into the system, right? People are still looking for ways for Social Security to really be, I guess it makes sense, right, once you're in it. Right? Maybe I would care more if I was drawing Social Security right now. But it's like, I don't think anybody in their 30s or 40s believe that Social Security is going to be around. I know I don't. So I feel like this is all just kind of like irrelevant. But at the same time, I understand that people do need the money. But this is more for people, I would say, in their 50s, because they're about to retire, you know, but the people in their 40s, they're looking for a way that they don't have to retire or they don't have to rely on Social Security as much. Like, they're not in the thick of it.
we need.
70% of U.S. workers surveyed who have not retired yet considered pushing back their retirement date, with nearly half of those surveyed citing fears that they wouldn't have enough money and 44% saying they're worried about inflation. Younger Americans are pessimistic about retirement, but many of them are saving. A lot of that anxiety seems to be about the future of Social Security.
Millennials are saving at a higher rate at this age than Gen Xers or boomers. So I guess I would say if they're nervous and it's making them save, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
I like to tell my students, many of whom are Gen Z, Social Security will not disappear. You will not get zero benefits. You will get something.
So this is a major issue that Congress should have.
Sure, we'll give you $400, you know, at a super inflated rate. Sure. I'm telling you, man, this is why. Well, I'm not gonna say what I have, but best and believe. But I plan to retire, man. I don't know how everybody else is gonna do it. You can do it off of Honestly, if I was gonna redo it, man, I wouldn't have taken out so much debt and did it this way. But it is what it is. But yeah, man, just get your bills low, index funds or crypto, dividends, crypto, blue chips, you know, something that's not going to go to zero. And I guess just keep going. But yeah, this market and really any market, all this stuff is brutal. Everything is just terrible right now.
Handled decades ago when we first became aware that Social Security faced this long-run funding crisis. Unfortunately, it's always easier for politicians to kick the can down the road, to leave the decisions for a future Congress, but that only makes those decisions harder. So I don't fear that we're going to see a 20% benefit cut from Social Security in the near future. Congress will step in to address that.
President Donald Trump signed an executive order in August 2025 that clears a path for alternative assets, such as cryptocurrencies and private equity, to be added to 401ks.
That's not a solution. You know, we actually need a universal pension system and a robust Social Security system.
Ghilarducci says these market-based tweaks distract from what she sees as a sustainable solution, which is an overhaul of federal retirement policy.
What I imagine is going to happen, right, is they're going to make some type of website or something, some app or something everybody's going to download. You put all your information in. You can only have one account one time, and they're going to send you stable coins, which is basically like $1. I feel like this is how they're gonna intricate, basically work into the system. People using crypto. Then people will buy Bitcoin because it's tax-free gains, all this other stuff, and then all this stuff. Crypto's amazing now. I just feel like all this is moving really fast, you know? I feel like time is moving faster. I just feel like this guy I watched, Big Ward the Genius, he was saying it just feels like we're rushing towards something, you know? And he just doesn't know what it is. And I agree. I don't know what we're rushing towards. I honestly think universal income. That's what I think. I don't know why we're being rushed into this, but I just feel this is the wave that they're pushing us towards for some reason.
Way. It's called the Gray New Deal, and it's a recognition that more of us are going to be aging as the share of the population than ever before, and that's a good thing. Part of the Gray New Deal is to have the value that every adult who wants to work should have a job. So we should make the labor market as welcoming and as protective for older people that is for younger people. So we need actually more health and safety requirements, more workforce development, and more enforcement of age discrimination. So I'm not saying everybody has to retire. If we want to work, we should be able to work. That's a value for society. Whatever age, government can be the employer of last resort. Full employment guaranteed for every worker.
The idea that everyone is going to have to work to age 70 or something like that, I think is just an exaggeration. In the past, you often had mandatory retirement ages where employers would require people to retire at a given age of 60 or 62. That's mostly been ruled illegal, and so people can work longer if they want. On top of that, there's greater demand for older workers. They can be valuable to employers.
Research does not support the idea that working longer generally takes away jobs from younger generations. However, in certain industries with rigid hierarchies or low turnover in senior roles, younger workers may see slower career progression.
In most places, older workers and younger workers are complementary. Younger workers need to be trained, they need the wisdom, but that's an older worker who wants to be there and an older worker who knows that they can have a dignified way to leave. That dynamic is very, very complementary and healthy. It takes two sides, two groups of people to decide if you work longer, the employer group and the worker group. And just because the worker group needs to work longer because they don't have enough money doesn't mean the employer group, wants you. The labor market always doesn't.
That's why I'll never trust any of these companies, any of these institutions. They're just gonna get rid of you when they don't need you anymore, and it'll just be business. But for you, it'll be everything you worked for. So I don't trust them. So might want to buy some cryptocurrency, even though I'll be honest, it's a shot in the dark. I'm gonna be honest with you. My whole empire is basically built on cryptocurrency. Without cryptocurrency, I have nothing. So hope that was the right decision. Peace.